Just like any other workplace, we regularly perform maintenance, repair, and service work on the equipment. It may seem like routine maintenance, but if not done correctly, service work can be dangerous to both the employees performing the work and also the people who are working nearby. Equipment that has simply been shut down for service work can inadvertently be restarted by a coworker, or equipment controlled by automatic processors, timers, or computers can restart without warning. Serious injury and equipment damage can be caused by the failure to control hazardous energy during maintenance, repair, and service work. That's why we use a safety procedure called Lockout Tagout. In this program, we'll talk about what is Lockout Tagout, who are authorized and affected employees, types of energy and how to control them, and finally, we'll go through the steps of the Lockout Tagout process. Lockout Tagout is the name for a safety procedure that does two things. Lockout Tagout protects against the accidental restarting of equipment, and it controls the unintentional release of hazardous energy while maintenance is being performed. Because of the hazards associated with maintenance, servicing, or repair of the equipment we use in the workplace, your organization has developed a Lockout Tagout program. This program defines specific procedures to follow to protect employees while performing maintenance on equipment. This is the lockout procedure for this machine. I've been working on equipment for over 30 years, and I've seen people take shortcuts when working on machines. It's just not smart. So as we go to work on this equipment, we're going to do it by the book. Our Lockout Tagout program defines it, and now it's up to you to work safely. Lockout Tagout involves two different categories of personnel: authorized employees and affected employees. Part of my job is to perform the maintenance work on this equipment. So in terms of Lockout Tagout procedures, that means I'm an authorized employee. An authorized employee is anyone who is authorized to shut down, lock out, and tag out equipment in order to perform service or maintenance. An affected employee is anyone who either operates or works near the equipment being serviced or maintained, since their job may be affected by what you are doing. An important part of the Lockout Tagout procedure is to inform these employees about the equipment being locked out and tagged out for service. Safety means working as a team and understanding everyone's role in the Lockout Tagout process. Most of the machines in this plant have multiple energy sources that can cause injury. This one has several electrical circuits that can give you a shock big enough to kill you. That one has hot water under pressure that can cause some bad burns. And this equipment has moving parts that can take off a hand or crush your foot. What do I mean by energy sources? Well, I like to start out by treating just about anything in that machine that can cause an injury as an energy source. We need to know what they are and how to control them while we're doing our work. There may be several energy sources in equipment that we service. The common ones include electrical energy from the electrical circuits in the machine, pneumatic energy in pressurized air lines, hydraulic energy in cylinders, hoses, and pumps, mechanical energy in moving parts, thermal energy from accumulated heat, and gravity. There may be some heavy component that can fall and hurt you if you don't control it. Okay, we've covered the types of hazardous energy in the equipment. Now let's look at two types of devices that we'll use during Lockout Tagout: energy isolating devices and lockout devices. Let's start with energy isolating devices. Energy isolating devices are used to isolate the energy in the equipment and physically prevent the transmission or release of that energy. Electrical circuit breakers, disconnect switches, line valves, and mechanical blocks are all examples of energy isolating devices. When we work on equipment, just turning the switch off isn't good enough. Someone can come along and turn it back on. It happens. That's where lockout devices come in. Locks and tags are examples of lockout devices. Placing a lock on a disconnect switch or valve physically prevents anyone from restarting or re-energizing the equipment during servicing or maintenance. Since the equipment we'll be servicing may have multiple energy sources, we may need several types of lockout devices. This kind prevents anyone from restarting a machine at the control panel. This type allows us to lock out valves on water and chemical lines. We use this type to lock electrical circuit breakers. This kind locks out the handles on gas lines. On some of our equipment, it's also necessary to use chains or blocks to keep parts of the equipment from moving. Here's an example of a device that accepts multiple locks. If several people are working on the equipment, each person has to have a place to put their lock. You can add more locks by daisy chaining them together. Each employee involved in the maintenance procedure is provided with their own lock and matching key. Here's a rule we hold hard and fast. We never share or exchange locks and keys. One lock, one key. That's how we stay safe on the job. You know, a lock and one of these fancy devices don't tell the whole story. To help communicate what's going on, we use these tags in our lockout tagout procedures. The tag tells who placed the lock and serves as a visible reminder that the equipment is shut down. Everybody on the floor needs to be familiar with the tags in your operations and what they mean. When the equipment is shut down, locked, and tagged, it means keep away unless you're one of the authorized employees working on the equipment. Now we're ready to walk through each step of the lockout tagout process. Lockout tagout begins with prepare and notify. Preparation involves answering 4 questions about the equipment you'll be working on. What is the type and amount of energy source in the equipment? What are the potential hazards related to the energy source? What steps will be necessary to control each energy source? And finally, who needs to be notified that the equipment will be shut down, locked out, and tagged out? In this plant, we have this information detailed on the lockout procedure for each piece of equipment. Once you can answer all 4 of these questions and you're sure you understand all the energy sources and the steps you need to take to isolate and control them, you can go ahead and notify all employees affected by the work to be done. Explain to them why the shutdown is occurring. It's a good idea to let them know how long the equipment will be shut down, in case they need to do some planning to get their work done differently during their shift. The next step of the lockout tagout process is to shut down the equipment following the manufacturer's instructions and the company's safety procedures. You may have to shut parts of the equipment down in a particular order or sequence. Depending on what you plan to do, you might have to shut down the equipment so that it's in a particular position in its cycle to make it easier to work on. The next step in the lockout tagout process is to locate each energy source and activate the energy isolating device on the equipment. This might mean shutting off a disconnect switch or a circuit breaker, closing valves, disconnecting process lines, pulling plugs, and attaching chain or placing blocks. Remember, it's very common to have multiple energy sources or backup systems. You have to isolate all of them. Now that we've isolated the equipment from its energy sources, we lock and tag each of the energy isolating devices on the equipment. Attach an appropriate lock to each lockout device so they're secured in the off or safe position. Now we tag out each lockout device, making sure that each tag is secure and can't be easily removed. Since we've shut down the equipment and locked and tagged all the energy isolating devices, we can now move on to the next step to make sure we release any energy left in the system. This equipment is shut down, but it's still not safe to begin service work. There may still be pressure in the hot water line. Be sure to follow the manufacturer's recommendations and your company's procedures for bleeding off any stored energy. The last step before you start servicing the equipment is to test the equipment in order to verify that the energy state is zero. The purpose of this step is to check that all the energy sources in the equipment are properly isolated and that all hazardous energy is safely under control. This could involve measuring electrical circuits with a meter, checking pressure gauges, and attempting to start the machine to verify that all the energy sources have been controlled. Make sure that everyone is safely out of danger before testing. Once you've verified the energy state is zero, you can get to work servicing the equipment. Okay, the steps in the lockout-tagout process are: prepare and notify, shut down safely, isolate the equipment, attach lock and tag, control stored energy, and test the equipment. Simple steps that we use every time to make sure we're working safely. Now let's say that we started the job on the first shift and the crew on the second shift is supposed to finish the work. Or maybe we need to add some extra people to the project. We got to protect them too. The way we do it is to have the next shift's employees or the new people simply add their lock to the lockout devices already on the machine. If you're changing shifts, it's a good idea to have some overlap time to make sure the new employees know what's been done and what's left to do. If you've got contractors coming into your facility to do some work on a machine, make sure they know your lockout-tagout procedures. On the other hand, if they use any procedures that are different from yours, you've got to coordinate things ahead of time to make sure there's no confusion. Here's another special case. Say you're working on a project that has dozens of lockout devices spread over a huge facility with lots of people working on different parts of the equipment. You may have hundreds of locks. Things could get confusing and someone could get hurt if a lock is forgotten. This is when you might use a lockout box. In this procedure, a single lock and tag is placed on each lockout device. Each lock has a single key, and the keys are all placed in a lockable box like this. Then each worker simply puts their own lock on the box, and voila, everyone's protected. Okay, we've completed our service procedure and everything looks good. So now we need to go through the safe startup procedures in order to get this equipment back online. There are 3 steps to safe startup. First, we prepare for startup. Then we remove lockout devices and tags. Finally, we notify affected employees that we're going to restart the equipment. Here, let's walk through each step of the process. First, we check all the parts of the equipment to make sure they're fully operational. And we replace all safety guards. We also make sure that the controls are in neutral position to prevent unintended startup when we turn the power back on. Then we inspect the work area for tools or materials that might have been left behind. We don't want anything left where it could get pulled into the equipment and cause injury or damage when we restart. Finally, we take one final look to make sure all personnel are clear of the work area. In step 2, we remove all the lockout devices and tags. Remember, only the individual who placed the locks can remove them. If there was more than one worker on the equipment, we need to coordinate the startup with everyone who was involved in the shutdown. If needed, we reconnect any supply lines we've disconnected and close any valves that we've opened to bleed off the pressure. The third and final step of the safe startup procedure involves notifying all affected employees that the maintenance work has been completed and that we're going to be restarting. Then, and only then, can we start up the equipment. There, we've completed our maintenance and we've walked you through the safety procedures for controlling hazardous energy with the lockout tagout process. You gotta know the rules of your workplace and you gotta follow procedures. Real people's lives are at stake. In the end, safety is up to you.